Did not go to Mass, then you did nothing the rest of the day. You couldn't play, you couldn't go to the movies, you couldn't do anything, because if you couldn't meet your obligation, then you could have no fun.
After dinner, weekdays, you came in for the rosary at 6 or 6:30, whenever it came on the radio. Came in, everybody came in. Around the bed, we said a rosary. There was always an altar in our home, and with a lighted vigil. That was all my life.
We were a Catholic family. There was one Catholic church in Kenner when we moved to Kenner. We did not attend church. The priest at that church came to my house and spoke to my dad and wanted to know why we did not go to church, and they told him, we were not going to sit in the back of your church. He told Dad that he would reserve a special pew for the Dupree family. My daddy said, no, if we can't sit anywhere in the church, we don't want to sit in your church at all. Eventually, we returned back to St. Joan of Arc. We used to go to church because somebody put us in the car, bring us to church, and bring us home.
We went on a picnic one day with all Creoles, and this priest was on the truck with the rest of the parishioners, and we told him that we made up 50 to 60% of the church. Why did we have to sit in the last row of the, see, when we go to church next Sunday, we go and sit up in the front of the church. That was the Creoles at my time.
Holy Family was really an old place, but the sisters were wonderful. We all had real good grades, or we couldn't stay in there. We had to be well behaved, or our mothers would be notified and we would be punished. So naturally, we had to be good children. So I enjoyed the Holy Family.
Honey, Sister Dolores kept me on my knees on hard wooden floors for hours in front of the Blessed Mother, praying because the devil had hold of my skirt tail. That's what she would tell me. Everybody had a tale to tell you about Sister Dolores. You prayed when you went, you prayed before you left, you prayed at lunch, you wore long skirts. We could not wear blouses like Xavier Prep, short sleeve, regular white school blouses. We wore long sleeves, heavy cotton blouses. Somebody from Europe gave them that idea. Probably Henriette DeLille.
Henriette DeLille, who's up right now for canonization. And if that's done, she would be the first, Creole woman of color from Louisiana to be declared a saint.
The Vatican has described her as an African-American saint. And the big brouhaha is that she should not be called an African-American. She should be called a French Creole or a Louisiana Creole. As a matter of fact, Henriette DeLille could have legally been declared as white. She chose not to.
She was a free woman of color, and she was wealthy, and she devoted her life and all her money to the slave children, to build a school for them, and she founded that order of nuns, of the Holy Family nuns, Henriette.
My boy, you see, somebody once said propinquity and personality are more than a match for prejudice. The offspring of this intermixing, this cross-fertilization, this so-called miscegenation produce phenotypes from very dark skin to very light. And everybody in the 7th Ward on Priya Street behind their dough-papa blinds began to know, what went on at night.
I don't know exactly when we came here, but they had a cadre of about 80, 90 people, maybe a couple of hundred, I think. Maybe 200 came when the first French boat came here. They had women, they had men, they had children, they had indentured servants, they had slaves. Somebody had to get together. I mean, they didn't have enough people. They didn't have enough men or women to go around, regardless if it was white or non-white. So that inbreeding, that was just part of the inbreeding. Inbreeding was far, far before they came to Louisiana.
Plaçage is the word, the French word, to describe the liaison between the white planters in particular and descendants of slaves and the white masters. And we have any number of names, for them. The quadroon, the octoroon, the mulatto. For the most part, at least when I was growing up, folks did not make that kind of a distinction. You were Creole. And in many instances, the descendants of the Plaçage were treated very honorably. Many were sent away to school, some to France to school. The family was maintained. And even some of them, we've got to admit, acted like their progenitor masters and also had slaves. And oftentimes had children with those slaves.
They had a lot of beautiful Creole women, beautiful. And they had picked the prettiest Creole women and dressed them gorgeous to dance with all of these Frenchmen, mostly Frenchmen, that lived here, came here from France, and they were big shots, and a lot of them ended up with them as their mistresses. And that's how we began. That's how we started. They started having children. These women were free women of color to start with. So they could put them up in a house. They had nice homes in the French quarters. They gave their children their names. A lot of people want to say, and some of it might be true, that a lot of these French names that we carry are the names of our masters, our forefathers, their masters. But it's not true. A lot of the names are actually our names. Even though he couldn't marry because he had his other family, and it was against the law and all of that. So he had this second family, but these were his legitimate children. They were illegitimate per se, but they were his children, and they carried his name. And a lot of them went to Europe to be educated. And that's why we had a lot of free men of color that were in big positions at one time in the city,
Seeing what happened after Reconstruction, after the end of Reconstruction, where the Code Noir, the black codes were established, which meant that whether you were Creole and a Creole who looked like white, if you identified as Creole, as far as you were concerned, the dominant group, the whites, whether they were the Northerners or the Southerners, they identified you as black. Of course, back in those days, the term was colored, de couleur. When you translate that into English, it's colored.
If you were a 132nd black blood, then you were considered black. And I think that law was recently changed.
My father, I don't know what he thought he was, but he sure didn't think he was black. I don't guess he did, because he never registered me as black. Because in those days, you were born in a house, not everybody, but most of them. See, my mother had a midwife. Your father went up to register you. Maybe a couple days afterwards, your mother was still recuperating from delivering you. It seemed like back then, I remember, I'm 16, I'm gonna be 69 in a couple of months. So 69 years ago, maybe they looked at you. My daddy may not have told the people that he didn't look like he was colored at all. So maybe when they looked at him, they just gave him a birth. In those days, they didn't put anything except if you were colored. they put colored. If you weren't, they didn't put anything. That's what I'm surmising.
After having my children, especially my last child, I started reflecting because when I was signing her birth certificate, they had colored, Negro, black, African American. So I was in a militancy stage then. I put black on her birth certificate. And then I started really thinking, and I said, okay, I have one child. I had Negro on her birth certificate. I had Negro. My husband had colored. So I said, I think I'm going to change this to at least the two sisters will be both of the same ethnicity.
By the way, I still think color was the best description of us and not black because we have all colors. We like a bouquet of roses. Everyone is a different color. I have 5 children, and there's no 2 children the same shade. And none of them's even my shade, so colored was really the best way to describe our people.
And you know, people get angry with me because I don't use the term African American for myself. I am not a hyphenated American. That's number one. And if I chose to be a hyphenated American, why would I go to my great-great-grandmother who was African, who I knew nothing about? I am black, and I'm proud to be black. I've never denied being black. I've never been a passable, never tried to pass for nothing. And I've always, when they ask me my race, I'm black. But I'm not African American. And I resent them trying to make me, because some black man woke up one morning and said, we're going to call all the blacks African American. Who in the hell gave him the authority to change? We went from colored to Negro to black to not African American. Well, you don't decide for me what I am. So if you want to be African American, I'm happy. You happy, I'm tickled pink. You African American, I don't have a problem with it.
The mixing and the mixing brought about an unknown race. What better name than Creole? Creole found a place, walking, talking, how's your mama and them? Dressing, putting beauty on display, cooking in a special way, lots of seasoning, yes, yeah.
Gumbo, the word gumbo, which is our basic cuisine, comes from Africa. Gumbo is what West Africans call okra. And this was in French-speaking Africa in Togo. And there was gumbo, as they call it. That is our food. That's it.
Something else Creoles do. They have 2 gumbos, and we try to explain this to people. You have Creole okra gumbo, and it must be made with Creole okra, which is a different okra than country okra. And you have filet gumbo. In the winter, you ate filet. In the summer, you ate okra. Okra was cooling to the blood. The Creole okra gumbo is mainly more seafood, no oysters, though, never oysters in okra. Okra slimy enough without putting oysters.
The gumbo, of course, which everyone knows. You have the different types, filet gumbo, okra gumbo, gumbo zeb, which is a combination of all the greens cooked down together.
People like at the circle market, they buy all them greens and they have big old bags full. And you got to put them in a bathtub to wash them, to get all the dirt and the rocks off them. I just go right to the frozen section and get me some green, turnip greens and mustard green, collard green. But what I like most when I'm making gumbos there is the spinach to give it a whole different taste. Some people don't put spinach in gumbos there.
Something else with the Creoles. They have dishes for occasions. Lent is a very serious time with Creole Catholics. And you eat certain foods. Now times are changing, but years ago, on Holy Thursday, you had gumbo zeb. That was Holy Thursday. And you got 8 greens. You even went in the neutral ground and picked the pepper grass and soaked it and washed it and cleaned it, even though the dogs had tinkled all over him. You had pepper grass in there, and you had beet tops, you know, or the beet.
So